Hi everyone, I'm Lara, a master's student at the Université Côte d'Azur in Nice, currently developing my master's thesis at the ICM in Barcelona, supervised by Dr. Valerio Sbagaglia. Today I'm going to present you my project with the title Spatiotemporal Public Attention to Invasive Alien Species Across an Invasion Front, a case study from the Mediterranean Sea. So without further ado, let's move to the introduction. As we all know, biological invasions are considered one of the major threats to biodiversity and a main driver of biodiversity loss. While comprehensive studies on terrestrial invasive species have improved over the last decades, management actions directed to control marine invasive species are still scarce. Research in the marine environment is more difficult and limited by several factors such as poor accessibility and low species detectability. Moreover, to achieve effectiveness in conservation programs, societal awareness, education, and engagement with environmental problems are keys. However, this is not possible without understanding and assessing public perception toward invasive species first. In this context, the huge amount of digital data passively generated by people can help us gain additional or complementing information on human preferences, interests, and behavior. Emerging research fields such as conservation culturomics and ecology mine those data sources to get new insights with associated low sampling costs and a small amount of time required. This can help us to fill a research gap, especially in the marine environment, and in the present study, I take advantage of the digital data revolution, in particular of Google Trend, to study public attention to lionfish, 𝙢𝙚𝙚𝙧𝙤𝙤𝙦, across the invasion gradient in the Mediterranean Sea. But why we are talking about lionfish? Well, it represents an interesting case study for several reasons. First, it is rapidly spreading in the Mediterranean Sea, expanding northwestward, as we can see here. And secondly, there is an already ongoing invasion in the Caribbean Sea, where specimens may have been released from an aquarium to Florida in the 90s and caused damages on the entire ecosystem, along with severe economic damages. So we can use it as an example for conservation actions. In this study, we will try to elucidate how space and time could affect public attention toward lionfish in the Mediterranean Sea. In fact, the inhomogeneous distribution of invasive alien species can lead to different observations and experiences, which may, as a consequence, result in a variation of spatial patterns of public interest. So, based on that, the first hypothesis of this study states that as the spatial distribution of invasive alien species is a driver of public attention, the Mediterranean countries invaded by 𝙢𝙚𝙚𝙧𝙤𝙧 will display a higher public attention than the countries that have not experienced the invasion yet. For what concerns the temporal pattern of public attention toward lionfish in the Mediterranean Sea, we base this study on the public attention transience theory, for which the interest in a given topic can decrease as it becomes less up to date, making this more difficult to support conservation goals and actions. It is particularly manifested during focusing events, such as sudden events of exceptionally high public attention concentrated on specific issues. According to this, the second hypothesis of this study states that in those countries that already experienced the invasion by 𝙢𝙚𝙚𝙧𝙤𝙧, public attention is expected to peak around the year of arrival, followed by a decay, returning then to background levels. So now moving with the material and methods. Google search volumes for lionfish were downloaded for the period from January 1st, 2013 to the end of December 2022 for all the Mediterranean countries at a weekly frequency. Moreover, in order to control for possible influence on Google search volume by general public attention to fish species, we selected 9 other fish species that are native to the Mediterranean Sea in order to use them as a control. Data were obtained using the Google Health Trends API and a dedicated Python library. To elucidate the spatial process of public interest toward lionfish, We divided Mediterranean countries according to the presence of the lionfish, so we call them present or absent. Then we proceeded to list the year of arrival for the present countries, and to do so we used GBIF, ORMEF, and we conducted a literature review. We then aggregated the data for each year, obtaining the total Google search volume for each country for each year, as we can see here. For the first hypothesis, given the non-normal distribution of the data, we used a two-sample Mann-Whitney U-test to compare Google search volumes for present and absent countries. And in order to investigate peaks of public attention over time, we ran a breakpoint analysis on the time series of each country from 2013 to 2022. Now let's talk about our results. The prediction regarding the first hypothesis, so that the countries invaded by lionfish display a higher public attention than the countries that have not experienced the invasion, has been confirmed. Google search volumes were significantly higher in countries in which the lionfish has already arrived compared to countries in which it has yet to arrive. Furthermore, we did not find any significant correlation between Google search volume for the lionfish and the control group, which validates our hypothesis. Concerning the temporal patterns of public attention, we can see lionfish Google search volumes over time from 2013 to 2022 in all the Mediterranean countries. Please note that the y-axes are in different scales based on the volume of each country. The red line represents the year of arrival of the lionfish in that country when applicable. We can observe a great variability among countries and not really a clear pattern. The breakpoint analysis that we ran identifies significant changes in the time series, but unfortunately unrelated to the year of arrival of the lionfish in the country. So, for none of these countries, we were able to identify changes in the Google search volume mean right after the year of arrival. Thus, the second hypothesis is not confirmed. Nevertheless, we still see an interesting peak in countries such as Egypt that needs to be further investigated. So, what are the future perspectives of this study? First, now we're going to analyze the time series with a finer scale, not yearly anymore, to identify shorter peaks of weeks or even days. Secondly, we are going to download Google News data for the same period of interest, so from 2013 to 2022, in order to investigate more the relationship between Google Trends, volumes, and Google News data. This can provide further insights on public attention to lionfish in the Mediterranean Sea, allowing us to go more into details and to analyze eventually how communication and dissemination of information can influence the public interest towards an ecological dynamic, in this case biological invasions. So, to wrap it up, the first hypothesis has been confirmed, while the second one did not. However, this gives us an opportunity to deeper study trends of public attention related to communication strategies for each country by using Google News data. In conclusion, digital data have proved to have the potential to help us to identify areas of priority, for example, for education programs and conservation actions at a low cost and with a short amount of time required. Lastly, I would like to thank 𝙢𝙚𝙚𝙧𝙤𝙤, Ivan Jaric and Riccardo Correia for their help and support with the data and with the hypotheses, my supervisor for his help and support throughout the internship, and all of you for listening to my presentation. Thank you.